At my great-grandson Leo's baptism, my daughter-in-law Victoria called me the shrew of the family, then dismissed my handmade gift. My own son, David, just stood there. After 15 years of her insults, something inside me finally broke. I handed her a letter, telling her to read it alone. Her face dropped. "You won't believe what was inside. This is just the beginning of my story. Like, share, and let us know where you are listening from, without mentioning my name." I smoothed down my dress, trying to look composed, but my hands trembled slightly as I walked into the church. Today was Leo's baptism, my great-grandson, a new life, a symbol of hope. Yet, as I navigated the familiar pews, a cold wave of loneliness washed over me. At 72, I should have been welcomed, celebrated even. At such an important family event, instead, I felt like a stranger, an unwelcome guest in my own family's history. 15 years of subtle, then overt, exclusion by my daughter-in-law, Victoria, had turned me into an outsider looking in. My handbag felt heavy against my side, not just from its usual contents, but from the sealed envelope tucked deep inside. My fingers brushed against its rough surface, a silent debate raging within me. Should I do it? Should I finally expose Victoria's carefully constructed facade? Or should I swallow the bitterness once more? For the sake of what little family peace remained. The baptism ceremony proceeded, a blur of hymns and hushed reverence. After the anointing, it was time for family photos. My heart ached to hold baby Leo, to feel his tiny weight against my chest, to whisper a prayer into his soft hair. But as I reached out, Victoria intercepted, a curt smile barely hiding her annoyance. "Oh, Mother Evelyn, I think Leo's had enough excitement. Let the parents enjoy this moment." She steered David away, cradling Leo possessively. My arm dropped. Empty. Then came the gifts. I had spent weeks knitting a delicate, soft blue blanket for Leo, each stitch infused with love and the desperate hope of connection. I offered it to Victoria, my offering of peace. She barely glanced at it, pushing it into a pile with other presents. "Oh, how quaint, Mother Evelyn," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. Such a thoughtful gesture. Her eyes, however, conveyed only polite dismissal. It felt like she was swatting away a fly. The final straw came moments later. I was standing near the back, trying to gather my composure, when I overheard Victoria speaking to her sister, who had traveled from out of state. Victoria's voice, usually modulated and sweet in public, was sharp, almost venomous. "Honestly, I don't know why David insists on inviting her to these things. She's just the shrew of the family, always hovering, always judging. It's exhausting." The words hit me like a physical blow. The shrew of the family. Publicly, openly, she had branded me. My face burned. I looked around, wondering who else might have heard. A few heads turned subtly in my direction. The humiliation was absolute. My son, David, was standing nearby, his back to me, engrossed in conversation with a distant cousin. He must have heard. He had to have. But he said nothing. He didn't turn around. He didn't defend me. The silence from him was louder than Victoria's cruel words. It was in that instant, watching my own son's indifference, that something deep inside me finally snapped. 15 years of silent suffering, of trying to be the perfect mother-in-law, of biting my tongue and enduring her slights, dissolved into a surge of icy resolve. I walked calmly towards Victoria, my hand reaching into my handbag. My fingers closed around the sealed envelope. My movements were slow, deliberate, each step a testament to the weight of my decision. "Victoria," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, though my heart pounded a furious rhythm against my ribs. She turned, a flicker of irritation crossing her face. "I have something for you." I held out the envelope. "Read this when you're alone. It's important." Her brow furrowed in initial confusion. She took the envelope, turning it over in her hands, her eyes scanning my face, searching for an explanation. Then, as if a sudden memory sparked within her, her eyes widened, her lips parted, a small gasp escaping. Her earlier irritation morphed into undeniable alarm. She knew. She knew what this might contain. The shift in her demeanor was instantaneous, a mask of composure cracking to reveal genuine fear. I simply nodded, a ghost of a smile touching my lips. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the church. The cool autumn air against my face felt like a balm, yet the turmoil within me raged. A strange mix of triumph and dread swirled in my chest. I had done it. I had finally pushed back. But at what cost? Had I just detonated a bomb within my family, severing the last threads that bound us? The drive home was a blur. My mind replayed the last 15 years, a painful montage of Victoria's subtle manipulations, her clever ways of alienating me from David and the grandchildren. I had tried so hard. I had been the perfect mother-in-law, always offering help, never interfering, biting my tongue through countless passive-aggressive remarks. I remembered the missed birthday parties, the canceled holiday visits, the gradual erosion of my place in David's life, all orchestrated by Victoria. She had a knack for making me feel like an imposition, a burden. The letter, the one now clutched in Victoria's trembling hands, contained photos. Photos I had accidentally found months ago, tucked away in an old photo album David kept at my house. They showed Victoria, not with David, but with another man, in various settings, looking far too intimate for mere friendship. I had debated for weeks, then months, whether to act on them. Each fresh disrespect from Victoria, each dismissive glance, each public slight, added another layer of justification to my growing resolve. Today, the shrew of the family comment had sealed her fate. The weight of 15 years of disrespect, of being dismissed and belittled, felt both crushing and liberating. There was a fear, yes, a genuine fear of the fallout, of finally standing up for myself after so long, but it was overshadowed by a fierce satisfaction. Victoria's words echoed in the quiet hum of my car engine. The shrew of the family. Let her see what a shrew truly looked like when pushed too far. Reaching my quiet apartment, I sank onto my worn armchair. The silence was familiar, often a comfort, but tonight it felt heavy with anticipation. My gaze drifted to a framed photograph on the mantelpiece. Arthur, my late husband, his kind eyes smiling back at me. I remembered our early struggles, the lean years, the sheer effort of raising David alone after Arthur's tragic death, when David was just 5. I had poured every ounce of my being into my son, wanting nothing but his happiness, and for that happiness, I had tolerated Victoria for far too long. No more. The quiet of my apartment stretched around me, interrupted only by the ticking of the grandfather clock. I pulled out an old photo album, tracing the fading images with a trembling finger. There was David, a chubby toddler, laughing on a swing set, then a gangly teenager, beaming proudly with a basketball trophy. My eyes welled up. After Arthur's death, life hadn't been easy. I remembered working 2 jobs, scrubbing floors in the mornings, waiting tables at night, all while studying for my teaching degree in the stolen hours between. Every penny, every ounce of energy, went into giving David a good life. I wanted him to have everything Arthur and I had dreamed for him, and he did. He grew up kind, considerate, a boy who always remembered to thank me, who would bring me wildflowers he picked from the park. What happened to that boy? I stared at his adult face in a more recent photo, next to Victoria, and a bitter taste filled my mouth. Victoria. I blamed her, of course. Not entirely, but largely. She came from money, from a world of privilege I barely understood. When David met her, he was just starting out, full of ambition, but lacking direction. Victoria, with her sharp mind and connections, seemed to take over. She guided his career choices, steered him towards opportunities, even dictated the guest list and menu for their wedding. I, his mother, felt increasingly marginalized, a background figure in his own life story. I tried, I really did, to bridge the growing gap. I'd cook David's favorite dishes and offer to bring them over, only for Victoria to politely decline, citing dietary restrictions or a busy schedule. I offered to babysit the grandchildren, desperate for a few hours with them, but Victoria would always say they were too much trouble for me, or that her own mother was already coming. My offers were always met with a polite but firm rejection, often accompanied by a condescending remark that made me feel foolish for even suggesting it. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the invitations dwindled. Family dinners became rare. Calls to David went unanswered more often than not, or if he did pick up, Victoria's voice would soon chime in, guiding the conversation, cutting it short. Visits to their home became brief, supervised affairs, where I felt like an intruder in my own son's house. It was a slow, agonizing suffocation of a relationship. Last Christmas, the usual holiday cheer felt particularly forced. I was at their house, trying to bond with my grandchildren, when David asked me to help him fix a glitch on his laptop. He'd left it open on his desk. As I navigated through his files, searching for the right settings, a folder caught my eye. Victoria's photos. It was labeled. Thinking it might contain family pictures, I clicked on it. What I saw made my blood run cold. Dozens, maybe even hundreds, of intimate photos of Victoria. Not with David, with another man, in hotels, on beaches, in private homes. They were unmistakably lovers. My heart shattered for my son, for the life he thought he had. In that moment, I quickly printed one of the less explicit but still undeniably incriminating photos. My mind raced. I couldn't just show David, that would destroy him. And I wasn't sure he would even believe me. He was so completely under Victoria's spell. I tucked the photo away, and later, at home, I wrote a letter. It wasn't an accusation, not directly. It was a plea, a message of concern. Victoria, I believe you need to see this and reflect on the consequences it might have for your family, especially David. I didn't mention where I found it, or how. I simply held on to it, for months, waiting for the right moment. Today, at Leo's baptism, that moment had arrived. The phone rang, its sudden jolt making me jump. It was David. His voice, usually warm, was now cold, edged with an accusation that cut through me. "Mom, what did you give to Victoria?" he demanded, skipping any form of greeting. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Something she needed to see. David," I replied, my voice calm, almost serene. "What is that supposed to mean, Mom?" "She's distraught. You can't just drop something on her like this, especially today." His impatience was palpable, and already, he was defending her, not even considering what it might be. "David," I began, my voice hardening slightly. "She publicly called me the shrew of the family today. Right there, in the church, within earshot of others. And you stood by. Silent," he sighed, a sound of exasperation. "Oh, Mom, don't be so sensitive. You know how Victoria can be. She probably didn't mean anything by it. You always take things too personally. Too sensitive." The words ignited a fresh spark of anger within me. "No, David. I am not too sensitive. I am finally standing up for myself. After 15 years of her disrespect, of you letting her push me out of your life, I am done." "What was in that letter, Mom?" he insisted, ignoring my distress, his focus solely on Victoria. "Tell me what you gave her." A cold certainty settled over me. "Ask Victoria," I said simply. "She'll explain." There was a pause on the other end, a silence pregnant with his frustration. Then, a sharp intake of breath. He was probably about to unleash another torrent of questions or accusations. I didn't wait. I pressed the end call button. I sat there, the phone heavy in my hand, a mix of sadness, uncertainty, and a new, unfamiliar sense of relief washing over me. Sadness for the boy David once was, and for the son he had become. Uncertainty about what would happen next, about the inevitable storm I had just unleashed. But relief, too. The truth, however painful, had finally begun to emerge, breaking years of suffocating silence. The days that followed the baptism stretched into an agonizing silence. 3 days passed, each hour a torment. My phone lay on the kitchen counter, a constant source of dread and a flicker of desperate hope. Every time it vibrated with a notification, my heart leaped, only to sink again when it wasn't David, or even Victoria. I found myself hovering around it, then deliberately walking away, trying to assert some control over my churning emotions. To keep busy, I immersed myself in tasks. I reorganized my pantry, alphabetizing spice jars, a task I hadn't touched in years. I started a new knitting project, the rhythmic click of the needles, a small comfort, but even as my hands moved, my mind raced. I replayed conversations, Victoria's barbed comments, David's dismissive tone. I reflected on the last 15 years, a slow, painful awakening to how much of a doormat I had become. Always trying to appease, always trying to please, always accepting the crumbs of affection thrown my way. On the 4th morning, something shifted. The relentless anxiety, which had been a tight knot in my stomach, loosened its grip. A strange calm settled over me. I walked to the kitchen, feeling a lightness I hadn't experienced in years, and made myself a proper breakfast: eggs, toast, and a fresh cup of coffee. As I sat at my small table, the sunlight streaming in, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hesitantly, I answered. "Hello? Evelyn? Is that really you?" "It's Brenda Olson." Brenda. My old friend, who I hadn't spoken to properly in years. Victoria had always subtly discouraged my friendships, implying they were a waste of time or that my friends were negative influences. Over time, I had drifted away from many of them. Hearing Brenda's voice was like a breath of fresh air, a connection to a past version of myself I thought was lost. "Brenda! Oh my goodness, it's so good to hear your voice." My voice cracked with unexpected emotion. "I know, it's been too long," she said warmly. "I was thinking about you, just wondering how you were doing. How's David? And the grandchildren?" And just like that, the dam broke. I poured out the entire story. The 15 years of exclusion, the constant slights, Victoria's public humiliation at the baptism. I described handing over the letter, the alarm on Victoria's face, David's cold phone call, and the subsequent silence. I didn't hold back, the words tumbling out in a rush, a cathartic release of years of pent-up hurt. Brenda listened, patiently, empathetically, without interruption. When I finally finished, there was a brief silence. "Evelyn," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of sadness for my pain and fierce pride. "I am so proud of you. You finally stood up for yourself. It was long overdue." Her words were a balm. Someone understood. Someone saw my pain and validated my actions. It felt awful, Brenda, I confessed. But also necessary. "Absolutely necessary," she affirmed. "You deserve better, Evelyn. We all do. Listen, I'm part of a women's support group at the community center. We meet twice a week. It's just a bunch of us, sharing our stories, supporting each other. Why don't you come? Do something for you for a change. Don't arrange your life around people who disregard you." The invitation resonated deep within me. She was right. For too long, my life had revolved around my son and his family, or rather, my exclusion from them. "I'd like that, Brenda. I really would." A lightness settled in my chest. I ended the call feeling invigorated. I looked at the photo of David and me from his college graduation, his arm slung casually around my shoulder, his smile genuine. A pang of sadness for that lost connection, but also a glimmer of hope that perhaps, one day, we could find a new, healthier relationship. Later that afternoon, I walked to the local park, enjoying the crisp autumn air. The sound of children laughing brought a wistful smile to my face. My phone vibrated again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize, but it had my area code. I answered cautiously. "Grandma?" The voice was soft, hesitant, almost a whisper. It was Chloe, my oldest granddaughter. "It's Chloe. Don't tell Mom or Dad I called. My heart leaped. Chloe! Oh, darling. It's so good to hear your voice. Are you all right? Yes, I'm okay, she whispered. But Mom and Dad are fighting. Really bad. I think it's about you. They've been arguing all morning. Dad keeps yelling at Mom, saying she needs to tell him what you gave her. But Mom won't say anything. She just cries. A knot formed in my stomach. The truth was out. Or at least, the conflict it caused was. My poor grandchildren. Oh, Chloe, I'm so sorry you have to hear all that. It's not fair to you. What was it, Grandma? What did you give her? Her voice was laced with curiosity and concern. Darling, what was in that letter is for your parents to discuss, I said gently. It's about things that happened between them. It doesn't really involve you or your brothers. I hated that she was caught in the middle, but I couldn't break Victoria's confidence, however undeserved. I just wanted to tell you, Chloe continued, her voice gaining a little more strength. Mom says some pretty mean things about you sometimes, but I've always thought she was wrong. You're not what she says you are. Tears pricked my eyes. Her words were an unexpected gift. To know that, despite Victoria's constant undermining, I hadn't been entirely erased from my grandchildren's hearts. That Chloe, at least, saw through her mother's narrative. Thank you, Chloe, I managed, my voice thick with emotion. That means a lot to me. I miss you, Grandma, she whispered, her voice tinged with sadness. I miss our baking days. I miss you too, darling. More than words can say. The day of the community center group, I chose to wear a turquoise blouse, a color Brenda always said suited me. It felt like a small act of defiance against the muted colors Victoria preferred for me. As I made my way to the center, a hint of nervousness fluttered in my stomach. It had been so long since I'd put myself out there, truly engaged with new people beyond superficial pleasantries. Brenda greeted me with a warm hug. The room was cozy, filled with about 10 other women, mostly around my age, some older, some a bit younger. Eleanor, the group leader, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, welcomed me warmly. We're all about women supporting women here, she said, her voice reassuring. No judgment, just understanding. I sat and listened. The stories were varied, some heartbreaking, some inspiring. Women spoke of loss, of finding new passions after retirement, of overcoming personal challenges. It was eye-opening to hear how many had reinvented themselves, found purpose where they thought there was none. It felt good to be in a space where wisdom and resilience were celebrated. When it was my turn, Brenda nudged me gently. I took a deep breath. My name is Evelyn, I began, my voice a little shaky at first. I told them about feeling sidelined by my daughter-in-law, Victoria, for the past 15 years. I described the gradual exclusion, the missed moments with my grandchildren, and the public humiliation at Leo's baptism. I spoke of the feeling of being erased, of becoming invisible. I carefully omitted any mention of the letter or the infidelity. That was a private family matter, for now. When I finished, there was a collective murmur of understanding. Margaret, an 80-year-old woman with bright, knowing eyes, nodded slowly. Honey, she said, her voice soft but firm. That's the most important journey you've got left. Finding yourself again. It's never too late to reclaim your worth. Her words resonated deep within me, a profound truth I was only just beginning to grasp. After the official meeting, we stayed for coffee and cookies. I found myself chatting easily with the women, sharing laughs, feeling valued and listened to for the first time in what felt like years. It was a revelation, a rediscovery of a part of myself I thought I had lost. When I got home, the red light on my answering machine was blinking. My heart immediately tensed. I pressed play. It was David. His voice was strained, heavy with an emotion I couldn't quite place. Mom, it's David. We need to talk. Call me back, please. The urgency in his voice was clear. I hesitated for a moment, then dialed his number. He picked up on the first ring. Mom? Thank you for calling back. Of course, David. What's wrong? Can I come over? Alone? I think we need to talk face to face. Now? I asked, surprised by the immediacy. Yes. Please, Mom. All right, I said, a wave of both apprehension and resignation washing over me. I'll be here. Less than 15 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find David. My son. But he looked utterly exhausted. His shoulders slumped, his face pale and lined with worry. His eyes, usually bright, were dulled and bloodshot. He looked broken. A sharp pang of maternal instinct, a powerful urge to pull him into a hug and make everything better, nearly overwhelmed me, but I held back. This was his reckoning. He came in, barely looking at me, and sank onto my sofa, burying his face in his hands. She showed me, he mumbled, his voice muffled. Victoria finally showed me the letter. And the photo. He lifted his head, his eyes meeting mine, filled with a raw, desperate pain. She admitted it was her, but she said it was nothing. Just some silly mistake, a one-off. He scoffed, a bitter sound. I remained silent, my expression neutral. I wanted to scream, to cry, to demand to know why he hadn't seen it sooner. But I knew this wasn't about my feelings right now. It was about him. My silence seemed to frustrate him. Is that really all you have to say, Mom? He asked, his voice rising slightly. After everything? After what you knew? What is there to say, David? I replied calmly. He ran a hand through his hair, his frustration turning to despair. Her explanation was a lie. I looked at her phone when she was in the shower. I found hundreds of texts. Years of them. It's not a one-off, Mom. It's been going on for over a year, with several different men. His voice cracked on the last words. The confession hung heavy in the air, a devastating truth finally unveiled. David looked up at me, his eyes pleading for understanding, for forgiveness. I feel like such a fool, he whispered, tears beginning to stream down his face. All this time. She was right there. I let her push you away, Mom. I did, because she convinced me you were controlling, judgmental, that you were the reason for all our problems, and I believed her. My heart ached for him. The pain in his eyes was unbearable. I moved to sit beside him, gently placing a hand on his arm. We talked for over 2 hours. He poured out everything. The increasing marital problems, the career choices he regretted but felt trapped in, how he had felt controlled by Victoria for years, slowly losing himself. I listened, offered understanding, not judgment, and simply let him speak. Finally, as the last rays of sunlight faded from the window, he looked at me, his eyes still red but with a glimmer of clarity. Whatever happens with Victoria, he promised, his voice thick with emotion, I want you back in our lives, my life, the kids' lives. I've made so many mistakes. He reached for me, pulling me into a tight hug, a hug I hadn't received in years, one that spoke volumes of his regret and longing. I've missed you, Mom, he whispered into my hair. The following Saturday morning, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was Chloe. Grandma, can Ethan and I come over today? We really need to talk. My heart did a little leap. It was another sign that connections were being re-established, broken bridges repaired. Of course, darling, I texted back immediately. Come anytime. I'll make your favorite chocolate chip cookies. As I mixed the dough, the familiar scent of vanilla and chocolate filled my small kitchen, bringing with it a flood of memories. I remembered baking with Chloe and Ethan when they were little, their flour-dusted faces, their joyful laughter as they sampled the raw dough. Those moments felt like a lifetime ago, cherished but almost forgotten beneath the weight of years of exclusion. Chloe and Ethan arrived a couple of hours later, looking a little subdued but relieved to be there. Ethan, at 12, was usually full of boisterous energy, but today he seemed quieter. Chloe, 14, was more thoughtful, carrying the weight of recent events in her expressive eyes. After hugs and promises of cookies later, they sat on my sofa. Grandma, Chloe started, her voice soft. Dad moved out 3 days ago. My breath hitched. I knew it was coming, but hearing it confirmed still sent a pang through me. "Oh, darling," I said. "Where is he staying? With Uncle Ben?" Ethan supplied, his voice surprisingly steady. Then? He looked at me directly, his young face earnest. "Mom blames you, Grandma. She says you interfered and ruined everything." A stab of guilt, sharp and swift, went through me. Had I? Had my actions caused all this pain? But then, indignation quickly replaced it. "Ethan," I said gently but firmly, "I didn't ruin anything. I just revealed what was already there. Your father deserved to know the truth." Chloe, ever the one to get to the point, then asked the question I knew was coming. "What was in that letter, Grandma? The one you gave Mom at the baptism?" Dad kept asking her, but she wouldn't tell him. I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. These were my grandchildren, and they were hurting. They deserved honesty, but also protection. "It was a photo, darling," I began, my voice low. "A photo of your mother with another man. They looked very close." Ethan nodded slowly, a knowing look on his face. "I thought so," he mumbled. "I saw texts on Mom's phone sometimes. From someone named Richard. She always said he was just a colleague, and she told me once it was a secret work project," Chloe added, her voice tinged with anger. "But they were always texting, even late at night. And I overheard her talking to Aunt Sarah about getting away for a weekend. It's been going on for over a year." My heart ached for them, for the years they'd been living under this deception. "I'm so sorry, children," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I never wanted to cause you pain." Chloe reached across and squeezed my hand. "It's okay, Grandma," she said. "Honestly, it's better this way. Mom, she's been hurting people for years. We just didn't see it until now." "Yeah," Ethan agreed, his anger more palpable. "She even took some of your gifts, Grandma. You know, the ones you gave us for birthdays? She kept them sometimes, or said they got lost. And remember that time you sent us cards with money inside? She told us you just sent blank cards." My mouth dropped open. It was worse than I thought. The extent of Victoria's manipulation, her deliberate efforts to cut me out, to poison their minds against me, was truly shocking. "She told us you were too busy," Chloe continued, her voice filled with a quiet sadness. "Or that you didn't like having kids around because of the mess." The phone rang just then, a welcome interruption. It was David. I handed the phone to Chloe, sensing it was a call meant for them. She spoke to her father for a few minutes, giving him an update on their visit. When she handed the phone back, David was on the line. "Mom," he said, his voice sounding calmer than it had days ago. "I just wanted to say thank you again. And to tell you, the kids know now. About everything. Chloe just told me they figured out a lot of it themselves over time, and it's better this way. The truth was going to come out eventually. Better from someone who loves me than from a stranger." His words, though still carrying a trace of pain, held a newfound strength. It was a long time coming, but David was finally seeing things clearly. "I'm going to make dinner now," I told Chloe and Ethan, trying to create a semblance of normalcy amidst the chaos. "How about lasagna? Your dad's favorite." As we ate together around my small kitchen table, a warmth spread through me. It had been years since I'd shared a meal like this with my grandchildren. Ethan, surprisingly, broke the silence. "We should do this more often, Grandma." "I agree, darling," I said, a genuine smile finally reaching my eyes. Chloe then looked at me, her expression thoughtful. "Dad told us something else today, Grandma, about you, after Grandpa Arthur died. And how hard you worked. He said you worked 2 jobs. And went to school, just to make sure he had everything. He said you could have had a bigger place, a better life, if you hadn't spent everything on him." My heart swelled with a familiar ache, but also immense love. "Chloe," I said softly, reaching across the table to hold her hand. "Being your father's mother has been my greatest joy. Every sacrifice was worth it. Every single one." The sun was barely up the next morning when my phone rang. It was David. His voice still heavy with the events of the past few days, but with a new edge of determination. "Mom," he said without preamble. "I need to come over. I have something important to show you." "Of course, David," I replied, a sense of foreboding settling in. I knew, somehow, that this was another piece of the puzzle, another layer of Victoria's deception about to be revealed. "I'll put the coffee on." He arrived within half an hour, carrying a plain brown cardboard box. His face was grim, his eyes still weary, but a spark of anger now flickered within them. He set the box on my kitchen table, the thud echoing in the quiet room. "After the kids told me everything yesterday," he began, his voice low and tight, "I went back to the house. Victoria was still there, but she'd locked herself in the bedroom. I needed some of my things." He gestured vaguely. "I found this in the back of her closet, tucked away under some old clothes." He opened the box, and my breath caught in my throat. Inside, neatly stacked, were dozens of cards and letters. My cards. My letters. My distinctive handwriting. The familiar stationery. He began pulling them out, one by one. A birthday card to Chloe from 3 years ago, with a $20 gift certificate still tucked inside that Chloe had told me she never received. Christmas cards I'd sent to Ethan and Leo, each with a small handmade drawing I used to include. Easter cards, Valentine's Day cards, even just because cards I'd sent when I saw something that reminded me of them. "There are dozens of them, Mom," David said, his voice quiet, filled with disbelief and pain. "All addressed to the kids. And to me. All unopened. All unread." He looked at me, his eyes filled with self-reproach. "She kept all of these from us. From the kids. She told me you'd lost interest in sending cards, that you'd just stopped trying." I could only stare, a cold wave washing over me. Here, in this box, was the tangible, irrefutable evidence of Victoria's deliberate, calculated interception of my every attempt to connect with my family. Every card I'd agonized over, every heartfelt message I'd penned, every small token of love I'd sent, had been deliberately withheld, preventing any chance of communication or affection. It wasn't just neglect, it was an active campaign of sabotage. Then, from the bottom of the box, David pulled out something else. A small, weathered photo album. My heart leaped. "My memory book!" I gasped, reaching for it. It was the album I thought I had lost years ago, during my downsizing, the one filled with photos from David's childhood, scribbled notes, and small mementos. "She took it," David explained, his voice flat. "When you were moving, she told me she was helping you sort through clutter." I had no idea how deliberate this all was, how much she actively worked to erase you from our lives. His eyes met mine, filled with a deep, crushing shame. "I'm so sorry, Mom." Tears blurred my vision as I opened the album, its pages brittle with age. There was David's first haircut, a tiny lock of blonde hair taped to the page. His first day of school, his gap-toothed grin, Arthur's strong, loving hand holding David's small one. It was a record of our shared love, our family history, the very foundation Victoria had tried to chip away at, brick by brick. "Mom," David asked, his voice hesitant, "was the letter? Was it just the photo of Victoria with that man?" I looked up from the album, meeting his gaze. "No, David," I confessed, my voice soft but firm. "It wasn't just the photo of her with him. I also included some pictures from this memory book. Pictures of you, of Arthur and me, of our life together before she came along." He frowned slightly, then his eyes widened in understanding. "Why?" he asked, though I could see the answer dawning on him. "I wanted to remind her," I explained, my voice tinged with a bitterness I hadn't realized was still there. "I wanted to remind her of who we were before she came into our lives. Of what she was destroying. Of the family she was dismantling with her selfishness and her lies. I wanted her to see the truth of our past, the foundation she was trying to bury." David nodded slowly, a profound realization settling over him. "It wasn't just about her affair," he murmured, almost to himself. It was about our history. The history she tried to erase, the life we had before her. I looked at him, my gaze unwavering. Yes, David, I confirmed. It was about the truth. The whole truth. 3 months passed. The initial shockwave of my letter had settled, giving way to a new, tumultuous reality. David had filed for divorce, a painful and messy process. Victoria, true to form, was fighting him bitterly, attempting to leverage every advantage, every connection, to her benefit. But David was resolute. The truth, once revealed, had given him an unshakable strength. Amidst the legal battles, a new light had entered my life. Chloe and Ethan, freed from their mother's constant surveillance and manipulation, now spent every other weekend with me. My quiet apartment, once echoing with loneliness, was now filled with their laughter, the clatter of board games, and the joyful chaos of teenagers. Even when they were with Victoria, they made sure to call or text me, a lifeline I cherished deeply. My Wednesday group at the community center had become a vital anchor. The women there, particularly Margaret, offered not just empathy but profound wisdom. You didn't break anything that wasn't already cracked beyond repair, Evelyn, Margaret had told me one afternoon, her eyes twinkling. You just shone a light on the cracks so everyone could finally see. Her words resonated, reinforcing my belief that I had done the right thing. Then, one quiet Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was Chloe. "Grandma," she asked, her voice hushed with excitement. "Can we bring someone to lunch today? Someone special?" My heart quickened. "Who, darling?" I asked, already guessing. "Leo," she whispered. Victoria had previously refused to let David bring Leo to my house, using the ongoing divorce as an excuse. This was a significant step. Overjoyed, a nervous energy bubbled within me. I cleaned my apartment meticulously, baked more cookies, and even put out fresh flowers. I wanted everything to be perfect for my great-grandson's first real visit. Soon, the doorbell rang. David stood there, a wide, genuine smile on his face, holding Leo in his arms. Chloe and Ethan stood proudly beside him. "Mom," David said, his voice brimming with emotion, "I'd like you to meet Thomas Robert Gallagher." My eyes widened. "Thomas Robert?" I repeated. My voice choked. David nodded. "Yes, I wanted to include Arthur's name. It just felt right. Arthur's full name had been Thomas Robert Gallagher." My heart swelled, tears pricking my eyes. David was truly coming home. I reached out, and for the first time, I held Leo. He was heavier than I remembered from the baptism, his little fingers grasping mine immediately. I traced the delicate curve of his cheek, the tiny button nose, the innocent curl of his lips. A wave of pure, unadulterated joy washed over me, blurring everything else into insignificance. This was the future, the family I almost lost. Ethan, ever observant, chimed in. "He's usually so fussy with new people, Grandma, but he seems to like you." David smiled, a warmth in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. "Babies can sense good hearts." "Mom." Later, after Leo was napping peacefully in my bedroom, David shared more wonderful news. "Mom," he said, a new vibrancy in his voice. "I got the offer. The university. They offered me my dream teaching position in engineering." I gasped, pure pride shining in my eyes. "Oh, David, that's wonderful. I remember how much you always wanted to teach." I knew this was the career path he had secretly yearned for, the one he'd put aside to pursue the more lucrative, corporate roles Victoria had pushed him towards, leveraging her family connections. "You gave that up for her," I said, a trace of sadness in my voice. He nodded, a distant look in his eyes. "I know, but I'm not giving it up anymore." Weeks turned into months. David found a small apartment closer to mine, making it easier for the children to visit. Victoria, perhaps realizing the extent of her losing battle, eventually agreed to a more generous custody arrangement, including regular, unsupervised visits for Leo with me. One afternoon, Victoria brought Leo to my apartment herself. Her face was a mask of barely contained fury, her eyes burning with resentment. As she handed Leo over, she leaned in, her voice low and venomous. "You think you've won, don't you?" I held Leo close, his warmth a shield against her coldness. I met her gaze calmly. "Victoria," I said, my voice steady. "This was never about winning or losing. It was about truth. And the truth is, I never wanted to destroy anything. I just wanted to be treated with basic dignity and respect." She scoffed, turned, and walked away, leaving me with Leo and the quiet satisfaction of speaking my truth. Months passed, and a new, healthier family rhythm emerged. Victoria, surprisingly, softened in her demeanor over time, perhaps realizing the consequences of her actions. David flourished in his new teaching role, finally pursuing his true passion. Chloe applied to several colleges, aiming for a journalism degree, her voice strong and clear. Ethan, discovering a hidden talent, started writing short stories, his creativity blossoming. And little Leo, my sweet great-grandson, thrived, his laughter a constant melody in our lives. At Leo's first birthday party, a joyous gathering at David's new apartment, he presented me with a gift. It was a beautiful framed photo. Me, holding Leo, both of us smiling, captured in a moment of pure contentment. The inscription beneath read, "To Evelyn, the heart of our family with love and gratitude." As I embraced Leo, feeling his chubby arms around my neck, I realized the letter wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my place, not just as a mother or a grandmother, but as Evelyn Hayes, a woman worthy of respect, love, and a voice. And in a strange way, I was almost grateful to Victoria. Her initial cruel insult at the baptism, the shrew of the family, had finally given me the courage to stand up, speak out, and ultimately, reclaim my life and legacy.